We got a new bourbon that I'm going to try tonight before we send it. For those that are listening, this is called Music Row Bourbon. This is from our friends over at Interstate Music. My brother-in-law, Sam Gaskin, is a recording artist. He also works there, so it's kind of an interesting paradigm, but he has been performing and now is on Spotify. And why that's relevant to us in any capacity is that Sam has done most of the intro music for any of the podcasts on our network, except for maybe one or two, but starting off with the Okayest Hunter. So Sam, when I hit the bumper to play our music, that's my brother-in-law, Sam. And this bourbon, which is 96 proof, I think. No, 85 proof, but it says 96 up here. So I don't know. Oh, this is bottle 96. Okay. 85 proof. 42%, 42.5% alcohol by volume. Anywho, this is from his employer and his record label. So kind of fun. Figured it'd be worth a try. Let's get it going here.
Podcast.
Oh, I of course I messed it up. Hold on here. Here we go.
This is the Okayest Hunter podcast. Never pass on shooter bucks, because that's just meat in the freezer. It's your tag, you hunt how you want. This is Okayest Hunter.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Okayest Hunter podcast, coming at you from Oconomowoc, Wisconsin. For those that aren't familiar with who we are or where we're from, I'm Eric, one of the hosts here. Greg Tubbs is our other host. He is at a work function. And Derek Melkor is our other host. He is on a vacation with his family up north. So typically you'll find those guys in studio here with me, but I'll be flying solo tonight, but not completely. I do have a guest, so don't worry. It won't be that boring. Couple of housekeeping update items. If you're new to the show, we do air live every Tuesday night, usually from about 6-ish p.m., pending technical difficulties in going live and all that stuff, till 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, depending on the dialogue we have and how many bourbons are, how well the bourbon's flowing. Fun tidbits and updates. For those that don't know, we are part of a podcast network, the Okayest Podcast Network. I think we have about 12 shows on our network. Our newest edition is it's hard to describe. It is its own show, but it's on the RSS feed or the feed of the Okayest Hunter podcast. So Derek Melkor, the host, one of the co-hosts of Okayest Hunter podcast, also is the host of Dropping Pins, our newest show to kind of go live on the network under the RSS feed of Okayest Hunter. It is a story learning style podcast about how to kill and hunt mature bucks based on other mature buck killers, aha, gotcha moments, things like that, where they started to kind of put those pieces together and when things clicked. So Derek fleshes out those stories from those known and unknown killers, so to speak. And instead of learning from a tactic or a strategy or whatever, it's more about observation and pattern recognition and things like that come out of the stories shared when those folks had those moments in the field. Greg Tubbs is also the host of the Okayest Fisher podcast, which is on our network. So those guys stay pretty busy. There's a lot going on and with all of us. So we're all pretty busy. Our latest podcast I joined the network behind Derek's is the Boyer podcast, which I didn't know was a word, but it's someone that makes bows. And Matthew Morris is the host of that show. I think his Instagram handle is Songbird Stick Bows or something like that. And he makes bows out of scratch. And he knows a lot about the history of bows, the types of woods, where they originate from, why they're used, all sorts of things like that. So he's got a really great show that just launched a couple weeks ago. So that's probably our newest one other than Derek's. Stand by because we'll probably have one or two more launch before the end of the year is my guess. We'll see. I'm trying to slow it down a little bit because it's a lot to manage and I tend to mess things up. So we're definitely building the plane as it flies. And if you notice, the shirt that I'm wearing is the, what is this one? Bow Hunting and Venison t-shirt. We just launched our yard signs Now I just got the yard signs in when I got home from work today. They were shipped to the house, and so now I have to ship them to it's called a 3PL. They handle our third party logistics company, so they handle all of our fulfillment. So I need to ship this to them. So I'm going to take these signs to them tomorrow, or to UPS, I should say, and that'll get shipped. They're in Wisconsin, so it won't take super long. So at worst, if you place an order for the yard sign, they'll be shipped out to you next week at the latest. It might be earlier. It just kind of like depends on shipping stuff. And I think like that's a reasonable expectation for timeline. I'll put that here on the screen so you can see the bow hunting and venison campaign yard sign. So our campaign slogan is, as you can see on the shirt, maybe here, shooter bucks and backstraps, bow hunting and venison for 2024, funded by Okayest Hunter. So if you want to really let your neighbors know where you stand politically, which is, spoiler alert, in the deer stand, and you want to follow our campaign trail straight to the deer woods, you might want to go pick these things up. We have a very limited run. We only got 50 of them. 5 are earmarked for some of our podcast hosts that I just kind of mentioned. And so there's 45 available for sale. I think they're going to go quick. We seem to have had a decent amount of interest. They're going to go for $15. They're listed for 25. We got a $10 discount on them. And if they sell out, we'll order more. But for now, it'll take a little bit then. So like if you want them quicker, I would recommend getting them soon, because I've never heard anybody say I'll take 10 or I'll take 12 or I'll take 20 or 15 on anything else we've ever listed. And that's what's happening now. So if people do put their money where their mouth is, I would anticipate these will go quick. So again, you never know until it's time to put your money where your mouth is, but we'll see. I think my phone's already lighting up over here. I just put these live before we hit record on the podcast. And I think we've already gotten 4 orders for them inside of the last 15 minutes. So I anticipate that they're probably going to go quick. So stand by on that and stay frosty. With that said, you can also get the shirt. Like the shirts, we have, I wouldn't say limitless inventory, but certainly not 45. You can sell those all day long. And the picture here kind of sucks, but as you see, as I'm wearing it, it looks nice. I mean, I got the dad bod underneath this, so I'm a little bit skinny fat right now. My stupid shoulder injury and arm injury, I've been pretty hamstrung in the gym. Not been able to do a bunch, but I think that's all. The Foam Fest, last thing. Foam Fest is August 31st. I recognize that. I think that's Memorial Day weekend, or I'm sorry, Labor Day weekend. Last Saturday in August, we talked about last week, but if you go to okayesthunter.com, you can, register for the event. You go to our About Us and there's the events page. You can register there. I believe there's also linked on our Instagram, link in bio thing. You should be able to get to it there as well. It's $40 a ticket. That gets you access to the full 3D course, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and I think 1 raffle ticket. The rest you got to pay for, but we're going to be giving away quite a bit of stuff. I think last year we gave around $5,000 worth of product, and the event's, a healthy number of attendees go, but your odds of winning are pretty strong. It's not it's not attack. So like, I think, it's a pretty low key event. You can bring your kids. There's kid activities. There's lots of room to run around. You can shoot your bow, obviously, on the 3D course. And we also have stationary targets where we'll hang up a lot of latitude stuff, and they're coming out with some new gear this year. So we'll be having that up at the course as well. So lots of things you can do and try out there that I don't think you'd necessarily be able to do at a lot of other like trade show type of events and things like that. So good times. So hopefully we'll see a number of you there that are hopefully like local. And then we had last year a number of people drive in from some other states as well. So it's a good time. It's a good community. We're not there to profit on it. It's all nonprofit. It all goes back to the nonprofit that we hosted at. And then a lot of money gets donated to our conservation partner here, Waukesha County Land Conservancy, through our 2% for conservation certification. So that's a mouthful. I feel like I want to be done talking now, and I'll bring our guest on so we can get to it. So without any more blabbering, Jonathan, thanks for joining us. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing great, man. I appreciate you having me on. And honestly, that shirt looks really good on you. I think you're a good model. It's a lot better than the picture that you had. So, you got me convinced. I'm going to have to snag one of those shirts now too.
Trying to have some fun. Politics can be, polarizing or they can cause friction. And I think in our community, we know where most people stand, and that's all good and dandy. But I just, fuck politics is about where I'm at the moment. I'm tired of it,
Yeah.
stressed out about it, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I just want to vote for more time in the deer woods. So that's where this whole idea came from.
I hear you. I hear you. I definitely, I can relate to that, and I would agree. I think, and obviously we know where a lot of people stand politically in our neck of the woods, but at the same time, I think everyone's kind of fed up with it.
Yeah,
They just want to
overall.
get out in the mountains and unplug and hopefully not shoot themselves in the foot. So,
Yeah. Well, I think you'd much rather go hunting than deal with
Mhm,
anything in the political realm. So it's an election year. It is what it is. We're having a little bit of fun with it. Um,
mhm.
and so we'll see how that all kind of goes here. But yeah, man, thanks for hanging out and joining the show tonight. I was on your show recently. I think it'll air sometime in August.
Mhm.
I usually black out when I do other shows, so hopefully it was a good one and people will enjoy. But why don't you tell us about your audience and your show and what you got going on with Redbeard Outdoors?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on, man. I always like being on this side of the microphone sometimes as well, and not having to focus on asking the questions, but I get to answer a little bit. Um, Even though kind of contradictorily, I don't like talking about myself, so I just like having good conversations. But no, with Redbeard Outdoors, honestly, it started obviously very creatively with the name. I love the outdoors, and I've got a red beard. That's pretty much it. But I've got kids, and at the time when I started just the Instagram page, I was working in an office where people thought it was weird that I was taking my kids out and going hiking with them on our days off. And I thought it was weird that they weren't, because we're out in Utah, and I grew up in North Carolina, and there's not nearly as much public land out there as there is here. And so for me, being able to drive 10 minutes north or south, and you can hit 3 to 5 different trailheads easily, if not more. And most of them are kid friendly for like the first mile or so. And then after that, you can carry your kids pretty easily. It just blew my mind that people weren't getting out and enjoying that more often. So I just figured I'd share it on social media. I was already taking the pictures and videos for my own personal use and memory and kind of virtual journal. Um, and then after that, I just contemplated started a YouTube channel and said I didn't want to dive into all the production and everything that goes into making a good YouTube channel. And so I just was like, man, I want to have good conversations with people and reach out to people across the nation and share their stories and provide a platform for that. And I also am kind of a tinkerer, gear nerd kind of dude. And so share what I like about gear. And that's really what I do on the podcast. And I started recording the videos and put them on YouTube. I don't really do a ton of production there. I just post the videos that I record during the podcast. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I just love it. It's fun having good conversations with people.
That's good to hear. I mean, that's kind of same here. If I didn't love doing this, there's no way I'd still be doing it because it's a pain in the ass. Like there's a lot more that goes into a podcast than maybe some realize, maybe some do, but I don't know. It certainly comes with its headaches from week to
Mm.
week. There's something that like, I always joke and say it's not a podcast unless something breaks or goes wrong. Much like it's not a party unless someone pukes or shits their pants or gets in a fight. Like that's usually how you know if it's a good party. Um, and we've all maybe been in one of those places. Like you're not drunk unless you poop your pants, and I've only been drunk once, and by that standard, so and we'll never know if I'm joking.
Oh man.
No, but you have 5 kids. Like how?
Yeah.
What's the age range? I have 3, and it feels insanely impossible. Like, what are you doing? 5 kids. I know another guy that's not in space with us here, and he's got 5. And he's like, man, if I could have more, I would. I'm like, what are you guys talking about over there? I'm at a really tough stage. So, like, yeah, what do you got going on with the fam?
We joked about it here on the mountain shooting total archery challenge. I went up with some guys, and there's constantly Mormon jokes, especially when you come out to Utah. And the joke was, I just said, honestly, guys, here in Mormon land, they don't really teach you to wrap it up. They just tell you wait till you're married, and that's it. There's no other education past that, So you go a little crazy and have all the kids. No, but in reality, I'm the oldest of 5, and I've bounced around between different ideas of what I wanted to do for my career, and I ended up not doing any of those. Finding a career in something else that I love, and but I did always know that I wanted to be a dad. I had a really good example of a father, and just how to be a good man, how to be a provider, how to be a protector, and then of course taking care of the kids by coaching and being actively involved when he wasn't working. And so that's just something I always knew I wanted to do. And so yeah, I've got 5 kids, and you asked the span of them. Well, I am 32, so I'm going to have your listeners do a little bit of math if the bourbon's not flowing too much already for them. Maybe they'll be able to calculate this, but I'm 32. Our oldest is 24, and our youngest is 7. So technically and biologically, the older 3 are not mine, but they are mine because their dad's not in the picture. And so I just became instant dad when I married their mother, and I was more than happy for that because, again, I wanted to have 4 to 5 kids of my own. So went ahead and hit fast start and started with 3. So and then we had two together. So we've got a total of 5.
That makes a lot. I was like, wait, that math is like making my brain hurt. That seems like it's not biologically possible, but I'm probably doing it wrong. And I'm glad you confirmed that real quick.
Maybe it is a 98% proof bottle you got there. No kidding.
Yeah, I'm only a couple sips in, but yeah, yeah, and it's actually not bad, by the way. It's not bad. I wasn't sure what I would think, but I just got it last week, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll try that. Running low in the studio, anyways. Good timing.
Yeah.
No, so that's do you take them out hunting and like you said you're kind of already doing all this, photography and capturing stuff on video and so forth, and YouTube is a fickle platform to try to mess with and really tough to grow, but you're not small by any stretch of the matter, and you have quite the following, and you've been at it for a while. Like what? I'm sorry if you already told me what year this started, please refresh my memory because I
No, you're good. Yeah, it's been a little over 3 years now. Almost right at the 3-year mark actually here in July. And so it's only been about a year and a half that I've had the actual YouTube channel. And again, it was just one of those things I was like, well, I mean, this as well as I, and maybe people out there listening don't understand this, but you don't make a lot of money doing the podcast. And that's,
oh,
you don't really make any money doing the podcast. It's a lot of fun building relationships and getting to know companies and people and getting to do cool events and meeting listeners in the audience. But in all reality, we're not in this for the money. And so I just said, well, might as well put it on another platform to hit another reach because, the YouTube audience is different than Instagram, is different than Facebook, and then Spotify and Apple. And so, and wherever else people listen to the podcast. And so that's just what I decided to start doing. And within a year and a half of not really pushing anything, just literally copy pasting descriptions from the podcast over to the YouTube channel, I'm pushing almost 2,800 in a little over a year. So as far as subscribers go, so I appreciate each and every one of them, and things are growing there, slow and steady. But the name of my game, man, is consistency. I show up. I'm not going to be your best videographer. I'm not going to have the best audio. I'm not going to be the best looking dude out there, and I'm not the most knowledgeable at everything, but I do show up. So that's what I'm good at.
that consistency piece is a big deal. That consistency over time produces results and creates opportunities. And I mean, your camera looks great, by the way. You look fine. Your mic seems like it's putting out good audio. I think you're doing a damn fine job. And having coached several others down this path, and like, yeah, man, it's a grind. I'm glad that there's other. I think there's lots of room for lots of voices in this space. Everyone's like, oh no, another podcast. I'm like, well, why not? Like if everyone that's doing it is their own unique voice in the entire world and their own way of looking at life and seeing things and talking about things. And so I think anyone that wants to jump in.
Yeah.
But you do a good job. You when you had me on your show, what I remember about it is you're a really good active listener. Something that I struggle with, which is funny because I'm a podcast host. So. You did a great job with that. But one thing I noticed too, at least on your socials, is recently you've been shooting your bow a lot, and I just have been starting to shoot mine more, working through some injury that I can't really fully explain. I think I'm on the mend after several months. It's been since like the beginning of March, and it is now almost August. So hopefully I'll be in a good spot. But you've been doing a lot of total archery challenges, or maybe more than me because I've done 0. So maybe a lot's relative. But how's that been going, man?
Good. Honestly, it's really refreshing to. It's funny because I'm blessed and get to have a portion of land that my buddy has allowed me to stock with targets. One of my partners is Morel, and so I just said, "Hey, I've got a bunch of targets. You've got a bunch of land. You can shoot these targets. Can I put them on your land?" And so, it's a good deal. It's funny every time I come back and see more dings in the steel target that I set up. I just kind of call him out on that. It's fun to do that and mess with him. But I have that opportunity. But usually daily, I shoot my bow in my garage. It's usually part of my workout. I just incorporate at least 5 to 10 arrows a day, just getting the shot process down. And then total archery challenge. Usually summer and springtime, we have a mountain archery fest, which is usually May timeframe. And then total archery challenge. It used to be that the last total archery challenge of every year ended in Utah, because that was the first total archery challenge and usually the biggest one. This year, I think they added 2 more, maybe Kentucky, and then another one in the upper peninsula, the Upper state of Michigan. And I think they have those 2 left this year. But either way, total archery challenge is always fun. It's 4 days here in Utah, and I love getting out and shooting. The courses usually take anywhere between 3 to 6 hours, depending on the crowd. It's 25 targets. Some of them are more of like if you're familiar with skiing, like your bunny hill type, where it's a good, fun time. You're not really risking losing a lot of arrows. And then you've got from that all the way to the extreme, like 5 to 6 hours long hiking plus shooting at steep angles, long distances, and everything in between. So, if anyone out there has questions about that, what course to sign up for next year, always feel free to reach out to me. I can guide you in what basically your skill level is, and if you're worried about losing arrows and such, which ones to sign up for and all that. But it's a lot of fun. I absolutely love shooting my bow as much as possible, and learning from the mistakes that I made this weekend for sure.
Well, and 3D archery gives you such a sense of confidence, once you work through some of those kinks and you're not losing arrows and you're hitting your mark and you're 12 ringing stuff or 10 ringing it, and you're like taking these shots at extreme angles, uphill, downhill, and then it gives you like this. You have way more confidence in your equipment and your abilities. So when you are in front of, or something's in front of you and you're ready to go, like it's different than just standing and shooting at a block at 20 yards into your garage. Like it's good to do that too, to get those reps in, but that other stuff is really helpful, I think, to make sure you're ready to go. So if you maybe shoot one 3D archery course, or go join like a league or something and get some reps in that way. Like it's super helpful. I think it's given me tons of confidence and not cockiness. Like I really do feel much more comfortable with my setup and my abilities after I do 3D archery. You usually lose a few arrows in the beginning though. You're definitely right about that.
Something else too that a lot of people don't think about with archery is your shot angle and what, quartering away, broadside, frontal. There's not a lot of frontal shots, honestly, in these 3D courses, but getting to see where your arrow is when it lands, like you said, outside of just a block target. If you have the opportunity to shoot 3D, and even if you can't go to a course, if you have somewhere that has a 3D animal, a deer, an elk, a bear, or something, I highly recommend you go out and shoot it at different distances. And if you're allowed to move it, move the target, angle it away, angle it towards you. A lot of them, they look pretty realistic, and the rings aren't always in the best places for you to shoot, and that can get a little frustrating. So, but I think there's an app out or coming out that allows you to scan a 3D target and show you, like, you select mule deer.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it shows you where the vitals are and where your arrow is headed. So that's another cool tool that you can use. But more than anything, just seeing the anatomy of an animal and where your arrow is going to go. And you're like, maybe you take the shot and you're like, man, that seems really far back. You walk up to it and you're like, oh, that's going through all the goodies, even though it looks a little far back, maybe quartered away. It's like, wow, that actually was a really good shot. So like you said, builds that confidence.
Do you think that app, I've seen, I don't know if it's out or if it's like, I've only seen beta, but I've seen photos or videos of that. It looks wild.
Yeah.
Because you can move around in it. I'm like, does that work on a real deer?
And I think it's mainly Reinhardt targets right now. I think there's one specific brand of target that it works the best on. But for people that don't know what we're talking about, I don't know the name of the app. And I, again, don't know if it's even out yet. It might just be a beta that I've seen, but it basically takes a, not x-ray, but like it strips away the layers of skin and fur and lets you see the rib cage, the heart, the lungs, the liver, all the inside of the goodies right there in the chest cavity
The
of the 3D
Boilermaker,
target.
if you will, right?
Yeah. The Boilermaker, the pump house, whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
Rage in the cage, whatever.
Yeah.
No, it's cool to I mean, I just like shooting bows, and I've been really
Yeah.
stressed because my arm's been in such piss poor shape that it was not a pleasant experience. So it's been a little disheartening for me this season so far, even though it's not hunting season. I mean, like maybe archery season or whatever you want to call it. I had another thought about all that, which was you talk about. Oh yeah, just what is your setup? What are you shooting, man? Like what for something that goes to tack? Some people have their like 3D bow and arrow and then their hunt bow and arrow. And so some of these events I go to, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to lose. This guy's got a whole setup dedicated to this, which is vastly different than how you would typically
Yes.
set up for your hunt stuff. That being said, I enjoy just shooting with my hunt setup. I'm not, I don't have that kind of money per se where I'm going to like go create a whole nother setup for 3D. I don't have that kind of time, but hunt arrows are typically heavier, they drop faster, bow might be, it's just a bulkier build. Where these other 3D ones, it's like they're shooting the lightest arrows they possibly can. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
So talk about your setup and kind of what you do there if you have two or one or whatever.
Yeah, so I've got 2 bows this year. I technically have a target bow, but I haven't gone down that rabbit hole, to be honest with you. I don't shoot it for tack. That is mainly for postseason, doing indoor 20 yards, flat ground, shooting dots. And I do think that there's a lot of benefit to that if you do have the time and the money to have another setup for that. But I'll never set that up for tack. I don't shoot tack and Mountain Archery Fest as a competition that way. I look at that as an opportunity to actually put my my hunting setups to the test. And so, honestly, I'm looking to piss everyone off this year. No, not really, but I'm trying. I'm trying. I'm trying a light arrow and a mechanical broadhead. I will have a fixed broadhead in my quiver as well for those frontal shots or maybe more quartering 2 shots than I'd almost rather take a frontal shot, to be honest with you, than a quartering 2 shot. We can go down that path if we want. But mainly right now, I've got to go out and put my final setup together, but I'm looking at 400 grains or less. If I'm shooting my 70-pound bow, I'll more like 380 grain arrows. On my 80-pound bow, I'm looking at 400 to 410, kind of that really light arrow setup. I need to see how they fly with broadheads first before I finally decide on that. The last couple years, I've shot 450 grain arrows, and those have been money for me. So if anything, I can just go back to that. But that's kind of my plan is, and that's what I shot here at TAC was my 70-pound bow, which is my shorter Hoyt RX8. It's technically almost 31 inches axle to axle. I got that one more for tree stands and ground blinds kind of deal. And then I have my 80-pound bow, which is the 33-inch axle to axle Hoyt Alpha X. So yeah, both of those setups, light arrows, mechanical broadheads, the plan with a couple of fixed heads in the quiver for those more bone breaking shots if I need to. And that's kind of where I'm at. Just light arrows, victory. I shoot victory arrows. I'm shooting the Rip XVs, which are I think the lightest grains per inch arrow out there right now for 5 millimeter arrows, and probably going to end up with AAE fletchings of some kind.
Okay. When you talk about having fixed blade broadheads versus mechanical based on the shot type, I mean, for me, my bow is hanging on the bow hanger in the tree. I have an arrow knocked, and if a buck shows up, whatever's in there is what's getting flung, and it's going to be I just use fixed. But are you talking for whitetail or for Western type hunts, like bigger game, like muleys or elk? And to that end, like, I'm trying to understand how the heck I would. Ooh, he's going to be facing this way. I'm going to grab this here. The amount of error that would occur for me there is all of it.
Yeah, yeah. So
you're going to go through the process.
Yeah, I guess I should. So, just talking about tags that we have this year. A lot of my time is going to be dedicated to my son. Outside of archery season, it'll be dedicated to him and his tags that he's got because this is his last year as a youth here in Utah, so he gets to hunt all the seasons, all the weapons, whatever he chooses. Um, he obviously can't shoot rifle during archery, etc. He has to follow those rules, but he can hunt. And I think we paid $40 and he can hunt all the seasons for a buck, $50 for an elk, and he gets to hunt all the seasons. Whereas for me, it would be like $50 for each season if I got lucky like that. So, um, so that's going to be a lot of my dedicated time. But just going into fixed versus mechanical. So, for example, on deer, I'm planning on shooting mechanical broadheads. I've got a couple that I again want to see how they fly. I've tended to lead towards having a sever in my quiver. And I just like the way that they fly, the shorter ones, the 1.5 inch, which now they've come out with a hybrid, which has some bleeder blades, which makes me a little bit happier that even if something happened with the mechanical, there is still almost an inch cut that will happen. It's not just a field point.
How common do you think it is that something? So like, there's this is. I mean, we can dig in this a little bit here because this is.
Oh yeah.
Shane Simpson launched an app called Tracker, and he's a big turkey hunting guy. But he also, I forget his dog's name. I feel bad that I'm not remembering off the cuff right now. But is it Daisy? Someone in the comments might know if they're listening. But essentially, he's got this app where he does all this dog tracking. Now he's got this ecosystem of other dog trackers, and then in the app, it's collecting all this data of like, okay, the dog did or didn't find the deer. If they found the deer or they didn't find the deer, either way, what did you shoot? What was it? Fixed, mechanical? What was the shot placement, the yardage, so forth? And he's compiling all this data to determine. And I don't think it's for this reason. I think just an output can be statistically based on all of this data from people that have tracked deer, which one is more lethal. And that's a tough question. There's so many variables that go into it that's not, you can't isolate those two variables. So those variables might be, subject to other factors that might not be noted, like hit a twig, or the arrow, or, the bow wasn't drawn back enough, or the flight pattern wasn't good because they didn't do any, bear shaft or paper tuning or things of that nature. Like there's obviously a lot, but in your experience, you talk about having a fail safe on a mechanical. Like, have you ever had a mechanical not work?
I personally have not, but I'm also only 5 years into the archery game. And the first couple years I shot fixed heads. Because I was concerned, I fell into the, being concerned about a mechanical failing, which, I kind of set things up to have as little amount of failure as possible on my setup, which a lot of things can go wrong on a bow. And so, I try and set things up that way. So I've always shot fixed until honestly, it was last year. I always had a mechanical at the back of my quiver for like a follow-up shot, but I never used them as my primary. Now I've flip-flopped to where I have a fixed in the back of my quiver for more frontal shots or, other purposes that we'll get into here shortly. But with mechanicals, I still like to have kind of a fail-safe. I feel like, so the mechanicals that I shot last year were from Evolution Broadheads or Evolution Outdoors. And I do have some. Hold on one second. I think these are because he makes a fixed head as well. But they have, yep, here they are.
When you talk about being a hybrid, like I've seen some that they start expanded and then they actually fail down to a certain threshold. That's interesting.
So these right here are technically a hybrid. So it's got like basically, I think it's a 3/4, almost an inch cut that way. It looks like, I call it a mini iron will for people that are just listening in. And then 90 degrees from that, you have these blades that come out that make it basically a 2-inch cutting total broadhead. So these fold out as it goes through the animal and have that kind of half moon shape. So you've got that kind of profile there where it's, 90 degrees is a double bevel mini iron will, and then the other way is a, big gaping mechanical. So if heaven forbid something happened to where they didn't open up, you'd still get that hole right there.
And
which
when you were shooting, and you still sounds like you have some fixed, were you shooting a single bevel, or what were your fixed blades?
I was always shooting a three blade because I'm not a fan of single bevels, just because personally I like a blood trail. and I know they do damage, but I've had issues even on a fixed head where even a 3-blade where I didn't get a good blood trail. And so I want to have a good blood trail. I want to do as much devastation as possible because I owe that to the animal. One, to kill it as ethically and quickly as possible, but also to find it afterwards. And so both of those reasons, it's when people talk about, obviously, you guys are partnered with Nosler, they make amazing ammo, but shooting a rifle is different than a bow. And when you shoot a rifle, you're going for shock, and you don't necessarily want 2 holes because you want all of that energy to be punched into the chest cavity. And that's what causes the death of the animal, is the shock and the transfer energy, versus with a bow, it is through blood loss, basically. I don't know the technical term for that, but it's blood loss. And so you want to have as big of a hole as possible and as much cutting as possible. And so that's why when I found the Evolution Outdoors broadheads, and now the Sever broadheads that have it's kind of a hybrid where it's got the bleeders that even if it doesn't open, it's got almost an inch cut. And then if it does open, it's got 2.2 inches worth of cutting, total surface. I like them a lot. They're made out of high quality. The Evolution Outdoors are made out of steel. So if you get to 125 grains or higher, they're made out of steel. And then the Severs are made out of titanium. So those are really hard materials, very trustworthy, in my opinion, materials. And so I really like both of those.
Well, what's also a part of the narrative here of this, we're not even really debating. It's just fun to hear another perspective. I think whatever works for you and gives you the most success rate in the woods, like, you should just do that. Oh, yeah. But the one thing I've heard countless times is like, shot placement is the most important thing. And, if you're going to be more accurate with mechanical, because it's a more true to field tip flight, then the arrow should go where it's going to go and you should kill it. That being said, once that knock leaves your string, like, who knows what the hell happens? Yeah. And in a high situation, it's just a totally different thing. Moving target, even if it's not, I'm not saying it's running. I'm just saying it's not a fixed target. It's a dynamic thing. It's a living animal. So things can happen. But that's why practicing is so important. So, practicing with broadheads, whatever it is you shoot, is also a good idea. So, like, come a little bit before hunting season here, after I feel like I'm fully dialed in, I'll put my broadheads on, turn my target block the other direction where it says shoot broadheads into this side, and I let it rip. Yeah. And I shoot fixed blades, single bevel with bleeder, and it seems like I'm not taking shots. I think the farthest shot I'll take or have taken is 30 yards. Mm-hmm. Within 30 yards, I'm pretty. I mean, even for the Okayest hunter, I'm pretty accurate. Like, I've missed. I've shot over the back of 2 deer, 2 bucks over the course of my archery career. So, well, maybe more than that actually, but 2 that were like, not devastating, but like, what the hell happened? Yeah. And I think that's a little bit more to do with, like, you talked about shot angles, and what comes to mind is the Happy Gilmore bend at the hips. Like, that is the. I think that's part of the mechanics of, like, practicing. So I have my platform in the tree in the backyard and trying to shoot from that a little bit more also, rather than just that fixed standing position. So I got 2 spots in the yard that I'll shoot from now. And it's tough because we're like, our yard it shares backyards with other houses. I got kids and dogs. So, like, it's a little bit trickier for me to find that availability. Because if I have the kids, I can't, like, they're so young still. They're 2, 4, and 6. So unless my wife is able to provide complete cover or they're not home, it's not really a good choice for me to be lobbing arrows into the yard. And I got 2 boxers that basically look like deer, and one of them's not as smart as the other one, so she'll, like, run in front of things. I'm like, are you asking to be shot? Like, get out of here. Not what you want to
have a death wish.
Don't put yourself between me and my target right now, stupid dog. Yeah. But I think as long as you're practicing and you're confident in the flight of it, whether you're shooting fixed or mechanical, like, that's the important thing. And getting the arrow to go where you're wanting it to go. That's the name of the game by and large.
Well, and the thing is, like, and the reason why I keep that, the iron will that I have in the back now, this year they made the wide vented 125. Last year I had a solid with bleeders, single bevel, a 125, and now they have the wide, which is a freaking awesome broadhead. It depends on the broadhead you're shooting, but honestly, mechanicals don't even really provide the same flight as a field point. There is still more surface,
Sure.
area. And so a lot of people go into that thinking they can just screw in mechanicals, the day before the hunt and go, and it flies like a field point, like all the mechanicals saying, like,
I
it
bet you a
really
lot of people do
doesn't.
that though. They're like,
Yeah.
I'll just send it. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, if you're still hitting paper plates at 25
Mhm.
yards, it should still be a dead animal. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
not trying to hit
Exactly.
corners here.
Yeah, and so I that's not the reason why I personally shoot mechanicals. It's just I like the bigger cut. And also having, like I said, they're more hybrids that I shoot. It's not a straight just field point with blades coming off of it. And so, again, like you said, shot placement's a big deal. I feel like there's a lot of goodies behind that vital V that can go wrong in a lot of situations, because I know a lot of people that have aimed for that very forward shot looking for a heart shot or the front of the lungs, and I'm like, and then they hear this loud pop and it hits, like the ball joint or the humerus or something, and it's like, oh, but there's so many other things behind that you can still get a double lung, you can still get lung and liver. All of those things are deadly shots. And so that's, again, for me, I just have more than anything, guys, have confidence in what you're shooting, practice with it, like what you're saying. But I just like the bigger cut of a mechanical personally, even on elk. And so to answer your question initially on the why a fixed head as well, and why frontal shots would even be a possibility and how I would be able to calculate that. Maybe as a whitetail hunter, not so much. And when I go out to Wisconsin, I will be personally shooting mechanicals, and obviously you're trying to, play it to where they're walking broadside or at least quartering away from you, which is honestly my favorite shot, is quartering away. But with elk, if you're calling at all, you have a very high likelihood of them walking straight to you, because somehow they have little GPS that they just drop pins better than Spartan Forge or Onyx. I don't know how the frick they do it, but they'll drop a pin where you're at, and they will remember where that sound came from, and they'll walk straight to you. So I would personally rather take a frontal shot now that I know the anatomy of an elk. Probably not on a deer, but on an elk, there's a good size spot right there in the front that your arrow can sink into and hit all the stuff in the pump house. I'd rather take that shot than a hard quartering 2 shot, because that hard quartering 2, they've got, that ball joint, they've got the scapula, they have the humerus, they have their ribs, and the way your arrow is going to deflect off of that. I would much rather take a frontal. And so that's why I keep that fixed head in the back, because I'd rather have that and know that there's more penetration ability with that than there is with a mechanical. And with the hole that I'm trying to thread it through with the frontal shot, I'd much rather have that fixed head for that.
Yeah, that's good to hear, and I like the thought process behind it. I mean, of course, people are going to have their own dispositions about it and suppositions, but I just dropped a link in the chat to the YouTube and Facebook followers or listeners. I don't expect them to actually go and watch it, but essentially, it was a video of a doe hunt early-ish season from a few years ago, and I was just kind of exploring some new tactical things, and I was pretty excited to get on something, and it was earlier in the season, so I was really thrilled to shoot a doe, and I got all jazzed about it. I was hunting from the ground. It was a 35-yard shot, a little bit further than I would like to take. Let it rip, nailed my target, full pass through, and what I think had happened is the fletching broke off and stuck in the animal. I saw her run off with the fletching in her, so when I saw that, I thought the arrow was still stuck in her, but I went to the point of impact, and the arrow had passed through, but it broke off at the fletching. So we never recovered her, which was really disheartening, because I was like, it's a full pass through with a pretty lethal setup. I was shooting from the ground, like I wasn't doing any of the angling stuff. I was like, I think what had happened is I hit her kind of high, and so therefore there was no blood to get out of the cavity to begin with, and it was blocked. I believe I never found that fletching in all the blood drilling we did, and eventually it just kind of dried up. So I don't know. Maybe she made it. I was pretty convinced she should have died. Just kind of a heartbreaking little doe story, but it was my first attempt to at self-filming, which is why I don't self-film anymore, because it's not my thing. But I tried to tell the story, and Greg and my dad came out the next day to help me track, and we just turned it up empty-handed, and it
Mhm.
was yeah. But I think that was one of those. I was shooting a iron will, um, single bevel, and I was like so dead confident that I was like, I smoked her, man.
Mhm.
Like this is I'm gonna come back tomorrow morning. It was dark because it was last light, so then I just got out of there. It's like I'm not gonna go track this thing now, and never found her, man. Went back the next
Mhm.
morning and just nothing. I was like, "What the heck?" So, that was a strange one for me, but that's one of those where you wonder, like, what did happen? I got it on camera kind of, as on the GoPro is strapped to
Mhm.
I think it's actually on my ball cap, and just how I was looking, like, you could barely really tell what had happened,
Mhm.
but I mean, that stuff happens, man. It's part
Yeah.
of hunting, and it's an unfortunate part, but that obviously, like, it felt like a lethal shot and a lethal hit and should have been a lethal outcome, and it just wasn't. So, who knows? Something went wrong.
Yeah.
I'd prefer to just clean mist because that shit sucked, knowing that there's a wounded animal there, but they're tough creatures. Maybe she lived, maybe the oats got her. It's all part of the circle of life. I don't really know, but that's interesting.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, man. I ended up recovering my buck after this, but with a fixed head. I was shooting at a steep angle. I was above him on the mountain, and that not having a hole that can bleed out is definitely going back to why I personally like the idea of a bigger cut, is so that I know that, and more of a square type hole as well, because I want to have a blood trail that I can track that animal, because it sucks not being able to recover something. And you probably did have a great shot. It just, if the hole is too high, the blood's obviously going to go down and sit in the cavity. And I had that happen where I shot high, so the entry hole was just, above, like right between the spine and the scapula, and then it came out, but where it came out was guts, and so the guts plugged the hole on the exit, and on the entry, it couldn't bleed out the top because it was such a steep angle. And so I didn't recover him till later. About 2 weeks later, I found him, and obviously couldn't keep the meat. I did tag the head and brought that home, but um, all of those factors come into play. Like you said, a dynamic target is hard to recognize that in the moment of the shot. You get excited or whatever, but that's just for me. For people that maybe don't think about this, and you shoot a fixed head and you shoot a single bevel, um, it's the hide and the skin or the muscle are two different layers, and they're moving. They're not attached. And so when you have a hole, if you have a slit like this out of a single bevel, personally, this is a double bevel or single bevel without bleeders. You get this little slit here, and the skin moves a little bit, just from them running or whatever. You're not going to get much blood. Whereas if you get a triangle hole or even a square hole from something with bleeders, like you said, you shoot now, and it'll allow for more blood to come out and not the skin to overlap and plug that hole. So,
That's a good
um,
demonstration for those that
yeah.
are listening. We have video on Spotify, so if you're listening on Spotify, you can just turn the video on to see what he did there with his hands. But that's actually a really well done little hand diagram you did there. That was very helpful for me. I'm a very visual person, so that was very nice. I like that.
Yeah, and the bleeders on like iron wills or whatever it is you're shooting now will help open a bigger hole. That's why I always shot a three blade fixed head, or now the single bevel with bleeders as a fixed head, because I don't like the idea of just a slit. I don't deny that they penetrate better. Scientifically, it all makes sense. They spin well inside the cavity. All of those things. I'm sure there's plenty of devastation, but if you can't see the blood coming out, kind of, I mean, you're going to kill the animal, but they're not dropping based on shock. They're dropping based on blood, and bleeding out could take 100 to 200 yards, even if it is a crazy awesome shot. Um, even a hard shot, they could still run 100 yards just based on pure adrenaline and whatever blood is left in their system. So it's good to have a blood trail.
Yeah, and this year I'm trying something different. I don't have it down here with me. I know the brand is Grizzly Stick. I'm just trying to think of which one it
Okay.
is I'm shooting from them this year.
You said it's got bleeders.
That's I'm on their website right now. I'm trying to look. I have the tins. They come in tins. They're upstairs in my
Yeah.
hunting, corner or whatever. I think it might be the samurai or the overkill. I thought they had bleeders, but I know I've shot I used to shoot the Iron Will S100s, And the reason I stopped is I ran out. I lost a couple in the woods, and I shot one like I never got. So
They're not cheap.
I just didn't re-up. Amazing, but I also cut myself on one of those things, and I
Mhm.
will attest that their slogan stands. They are sharp as science allows. That was and that's on video. That dumb situation we cut myself. I was drawn back on a buck on public. I'm from the ground and just freaking sliced my finger wide open.
Oh, no.
And then my peep sight too broke all at the same time. So my brain was super confused as to what the hell was
Mm.
going on. I couldn't piece all together, and all of a sudden the pain happened. The blood started going down my arm. It's just a shame.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah, and then for a couple, was it last year before Method went out? Then they were Vector, then they were Method. Like we had a strong partnership with those guys. I mean, they were in our backyard, and good friends with Isaac. So I was loaded up, and the buck I got that is above me here, this wide guy, he was with their stuff. I think that one over there was too, both Method or Vector, whatever they were at the time. So I unfortunately, I don't think I ever killed anything with the iron will, even though I intended to. And the grizzly stick we'll find out this season, so we'll put those to the test here on my end. Like, I think there's some quality products on the market for sure. Again, that practice part is the critical part. You got to be practice, and I could probably do a better job of that myself. But usually I'll throw the broadheads on, fling a bunch of arrows. If I get 3 groups, of 3 where I want them to be, I'm like, okay, we're good. So I'll shoot 9 shots. If it's 9 shots, might be a little bit of adjusting in there, but then it's like, okay, I feel confident, we're good. That bending from the hip thing, though, that's pretty real. I think there'll be a meme tomorrow morning that I put out. I'll probably make that tonight after this podcast. But you're coming to Wisconsin. You're in Utah. What's the plan? Have you been here before? Do you need some help? What do you got going on, and why Wisconsin?
Yeah, so I've actually got a buddy that used to have an elk property up there, and used to guide a little bit up there as well, and in Colorado, and so his family still has some land up there, and so we're just going to go up there. It's out in the boonies, so there's not going to be any cell service, Wi-Fi, any of that, which I'm stoked on. I will miss my family, but I love getting away from cell phone service, and may not seem like that because I'm, again, consistent at posting on social media and the podcast and all that, but I really do. Like, anytime I get to go to events too, I just tell people, I'm like, man, if I could throw this freaking phone down the drain, have a flip phone just for my wife and my kids, and then and just do all the stuff I do on social in person, I would much rather prefer that. But anyway, we're heading up there. I will be bringing
What county did you say it was again?
It's going to be the end of October, middle to end of October.
So it'll be archery. And I'm sorry, what county was it again?
That I honestly don't know. I don't even know if he sent me the address. He just told me what airport to fly into.
Is it the northern part of the state? Do you know? Or if he said it was an elk property, I wonder if it was further north.
Yeah, he used to have an elk property. He grew up raising elk. And then I think they sold the elk farm, but they still have the other portion.
Yeah. Well, when you find out, let me know, man.
Yeah.
But go on. Yeah, sorry. So if there's no cell reception, it's probably up north is my guess. But
yeah, probably. I'd imagine so. Probably middle to upper. I know he said going through Madison would be, I say, about halfway from Missouri or 3/4 of the way from Missouri where I'm flying into. So anyway, yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm really excited. The other thing too that I going back to practicing out of the tree stand, practice with your layers on, guys. If you shoot, with your bow in the late season and you're going to be cold and bundled up, like make sure you shoot with your layers, because that gets a little awkward sometimes. Your layers, or if you've got a harness on you or a 5-point harness or whatever you choose to wear in the tree stand, hopefully you're wearing something and you're not going to fall out of the tree stand. But whatever it is that you're wearing, if you're wearing a saddle, if you're whatever, shoot with that on as well and get used to that. But anyway, I'm going to go up there for about a week, and I know nothing about the property. I asked him if I can send trail cameras. He's like, we kind of know the property enough that maybe we'll get a scouting day in or two, and then kind of go from there and guess and play the wind. So, I'm up for it. I'm up for a good time. I'm up for shooting does. I don't really have a standard on bucks. So just whatever's legal, man.
So your first time coming to Wisconsin then?
Yeah, for hunting purposes, yeah.
Yeah, I think when you're traveling to a new state, having a new experience, like whatever your standard or threshold is, like I think that bar moves.
Yeah.
'Cause at that point, you're making different kinds of memories. Like, I mean, maybe you won't shoot a spike, but maybe you will. You know, like
Dude, I was close in Ohio, man. That was my first time whitetail hunting last year in Ohio. And like, if so, the guy, I went to his family property and I wanted to shoot 2 does and a buck, anything that was legal, pretty much.
yep.
And the dad seemed a little about me shooting 2 does. So I didn't shoot the second doe. I spot and stalked a doe because I was like, you can't take the Western out of this guy. But yeah, spot and stalked a doe, and then I wanted to shoot a second one. He seemed a little iffy, so that's why I didn't shoot the spike, because I didn't want to. I was invited there, right? So I was kind of like, ah. But I got super excited when I saw the spike come up underneath me. I was like, oh man, like that dude is gone. But I let him pass, and so yeah, I'm at that point. With a mule deer, I am above a 2 point. It needs to be above a 2 point for me to shoot it, because I slowly progressed. I shot a spike one year, I shot a 2 point the next year, which for whitetail guys that would be a 4 point or 2x2. And so now I'm like a 3 point or above, at this point for mule deer. But for whitetail, I'm still at spike status. I just want to get a whitetail down.
Yeah, no, that's I mean, I can't see it. I think if I change the cameras, you see the bottom of the skull here, but not the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's an 8 point. It's a basket rack 8. It's not. It's a probably a yearling buck. That just probably would have been nice. But it was a gun hunting deer, and I was like,
He looks good on your wall, man. What do you mean
Yeah.
it could have been nice? He looks great on your wall.
yeah, no, but I was like, I mean, that'll be our season 2 of our hunting show that's coming out this, probably late August, early September. That hunt will be what or part of that series that people can see. But I was pretty jazzed to get that, mainly because my daughter was she was just dogging me about getting a deer to have some venison. I was like, you gotta calm down. Do you know who your dad is? Like this isn't. And I was bow hunting and into some pretty gnarly stuff, into some like I've really come a long way in the bow hunting world, I think, and so have others have told me. And I had 2 opportunities at the same 150-ish inch deer, and they're hard to kill, so it didn't happen.
Mhm.
And good lessons learned. I don't know if I would have been, if I were redone those things. It would have been like that movie with Tom Cruise where he just the day after tomorrow. I learned this. I'm gonna go at it again. You get a little further and you fuck it up again. Like I probably would have found some new ways to mess that up. So like clearly there's no guarantees in my mind, but yeah, killing that basket rack was exciting. And Wisconsin's just public land's tough here. It's
Mhm.
crowded. It's saturated. I mean, especially gun. There's I don't know what the exact numbers are now, but it's roughly like 600,000 like people buy licenses for gun deer, and in that
Yeah.
weekend, it's like the Orange Army goes out and just wreaks havoc on the landscape for whitetails. So, but yeah, it's cool that you're coming up here, man. October's a weird month for me. I think I got 2 vacations, my wife's birthday and our wedding anniversary. So I'd say hit me up, but I have no idea where I'm going to be at or if I'm going to be around. If you're flying into Madison, you're not far from here. Oconomowoc probably an hour from Madison.
Okay.
But if you're heading straight north and on a hunting trip, you're not trying to like drive out of your way to come to Oconomowoc. But anytime you're up here, I'd say you're welcome. So
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, I'm flying into Missouri because I am going with Jake in First Form, for people that know about. Yeah, so that he's the guy that has families from Wisconsin. So I'm flying into First Form headquarters, and then we're driving up together from there. So yeah, so I don't know. I'm just like, I'm along for the ride. Tell me what to bring. I'm gonna have my bow. I'm gonna have arrows. I'm gonna have broadheads, and I'll have my saddle set up. And then I guess he's got some tree stands out there that we'll be using. So
cool.
That's about it.
What saddle are you hunting out of?
So I use a cruiser. I'm not a huge whitetail guy, but they were kind enough to send me a saddle. I was going to use it for elk last year, which is probably my strategy this year with how hot and dry it's been this summer. Is to sit water. And elk are not like whitetails, so they are not trained to look up. And so
Yeah.
they do not have that in their genes. And so I know a lot of people that are pretty successful year after year on elk in the early season, because technically we start our hunt in 3 weeks, like the middle of August is when we can hunt for mule deer and elk. And so with it being in the middle of the summer, sitting water, and having that portable saddle that I can go up in is going to be money, hopefully this year.
That's cool. I didn't consider that. We've been partnered with Latitude since they started, and almost since we started, at least since we rebranded to Okayest Hunter. And elk has not been something that was like a high consideration because it's such there's so much mobility involved with, like, and then you're hunting such steep terrain that you kind of don't need to be up in a tree because it's relatively just climb a little bit higher and you'll be up in the tree, so to speak. So it's interesting to hear you talking about a hotter, early season watering hole getting elevated. They're not trying to look up. You'll increase your odds. That's a use case I hadn't considered. Not that I'm also not an elk hunter by definition because I've never done it. So it's not something I would have thought of at all necessarily, but that's kind of cool.
Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. There's definitely some watering holes that I've been to that already have like people leave their tree stands, which that's the other thing too that I didn't realize. But I've had some friends that have left tree stands on public land and they came back and it was stolen. And that doesn't happen out here, I guess, because the last couple of years I've been to certain spots and there's a very nice wallow and some other water in these areas. And there's tree stands that look like they've been up there since a decade.
Yeah.
And so
the last thing you want to do in elk hunt is carry more shit out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, these are.
I'm not gonna grab that.
Yeah, like I don't even know how, there's even like ground blinds, like the pop-up ground blinds that I've seen that are just devastated. Like you can tell they've been trampled on because they've been out there for years. I'm like, man, like why are you guys leaving garbage out here? But then, I can understand not wanting to carry a ladder stand a mile back out, like.
Yeah. And even if you tell the thieves that try to take shit, like whitetail hunters are, a lot of them on the public side are mobile, and you typically have your climbing sticks with you. I think if you're an elk hunter, it's pretty rare that you'd come across an elk hunter with climbing sticks on their gear pack, like strapped down. So I imagine it's like, well, look at that up there. I'm not bothering, and I don't have the equipment to do so.
Yeah,
that's interesting. No, it's good stuff, man. Well, let me know. You have to keep us posted with how it goes when you're in Wisconsin. I'd be curious to hear how you do, and I'd love to see photos. And obviously, it should be super relatable and be proud of anything and get up here. It's a tough hunt for sure.
Exactly.
But if everybody's got property and you're going with the first form guys, like maybe it'll be a cakewalk and you'll just have your pick of the litter. I don't know.
I'll send you a picture and you're gonna block me because you'll be like, man, how was that your first whitetail? What the heck?
I'm like, well, good for you, buddy. That'd be great. You'll come back every year.
Yeah.
Oh, that'll be good. Yeah, tell people where they can find you, man. We'll bring the plane in for landing, but where do folks find, Redbeard Outdoors? Is it YouTube? Is it Spotify, Facebook, Instagram, all the above? Is that the name? Like, is there any other affiliations that are worth calling out where you want to send people to?
Yeah, no, for sure. I appreciate that. I'm on all the platforms as far as YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, just Redbeard Outdoors. It's all the same logo. Instagram, same thing. It's Redbeard Outdoors. I do have a gear page, Redbeard's Gear. I just barely started that, so kind of, putting my gear stuff over there, testing those waters a little bit. And then if you have any questions, always feel free to reach out on Facebook. I help run the First Form Outdoors Facebook page. You don't have to buy anything to get into the page. It is a private group, but we have over 6,000 members, and you'll find people that, again, love fishing, love hunting, love whatever it is that you love in the outdoors. You'll find your people there. So you can go over there as well.
That's fantastic, man. That's cool. Got a lot of good stuff going on. Appreciate you connecting. If I'm not mistaken, we connected in person at ATA
2 years ago.
2 years ago? Yeah, it's all a blur. I think that was the year I interviewed Michael Waddell.
Yep.
If I'm not mistaken. That felt like a big deal for me to do that, and haven't talked to him since.
Well, it's not like he's busy or has anything going on, right?
Like I ran into him one other time past that, and I was like, I interviewed him one time, and I think he's like, yeah, okay, like talking to the kid. It was a good interview, and he was a nice guy, but I've not had any, like, I'm not in like some of the, I don't want to say I'm not in some of the circles. I'm not trying to like get down on myself. I don't like, but like I also don't care that much. That's not the goal. But it was a good dialogue, and that was I remember that year at ATA, and I think maybe Dan Matthews and a few other folks were standing around when you and I were chatting.
Yep.
I remember, I have a visual memory, so I can kind of remember where we were standing when we were having the conversation.
Yeah, we were handing out energy drinks.
That's right.
Jake and I. Yep.
That's good stuff. That's pretty cool, man. So yeah, certainly like I guess we've technically known each other for a little while now, so it's fun to finally get to talk. It takes a little bit of time, apparently, to circle back with folks. 2 years to be exact, in this case. But life's long. Lots of, like you said, it's the return on relationship with this stuff. Had talking to good people, and there's lots of people to talk to. It's crazy. I mean, you're booked out pretty far in your stuff, and I know I've kind of pumped the brakes on booking guests for just a half a second. I have two co-hosts typically, so it's a little bit different to then just have the place to ourselves, so to speak. But yeah, like you book guests out sometimes a couple months in advance, and it's like, how is that even possible? There's like a limitless number of people to talk to.
Yeah, it feels like you get that concern of running out of people to talk to, but even then, like, you can always bring people on.
Bring back other topics.
Again, in 1 hour, you're not going to get enough out of someone. There's always going to be something else to talk about. But I will say, I do like your bow hunting and venison shirt. But if you really want to get controversial, you got to do a mechanicals and devastation, like red shirt, and then you got to have a fixed no problems or whatever blue shirt, right? You got to have the two parties, right?
Dude, there's some for you. Take that idea and run with it.
Heck yeah.
I mean, one of our pals that tunes in often, and he's a Wisconsin guy. Tony's like, you might sell more if they were red.
Yeah,
probably not wrong. And like, I could just make a red one and put it, and you could pick your color. I don't care.
Yeah,
I'll just have to change.
To blue. Even a little play on words, like the mechanical. Ours is bigger. Whatever. Like so.
Yeah, you totally could. I mean, it's funny. I had a whole bunch of ideas for this, and I was going to do all of them. Like, I was going to do a weed and whitetails 2024.
Oh, there you go.
Like, I was just going to go. I was like, man, I don't have that kind of time to be making all this shit. Like, every time I do something, it's a whole nother project. I was like, I got time for one.
Yeah.
So I just picked one, and I was like, so, I mean, feel free. Anybody else, you want to go to Marco with something, go nuts. An idea is only worth the ability to execute on it. So, like,
exactly.
You talk about it all day long, and you stole my idea. No, I did your idea. You
you weren't going to do anything with it.
Therefore, I won't be mad at you or anybody else that wants to take an idea that I've not done yet. So I tend to move on mine pretty quick, though, for that reason. Like, when we talked about dropping pins with Derek, I think we moved on that one inside of like a week. Same thing with this.
Awesome.
Like, I sat on it for a day. Last week, I talked about doing a hoodie that said deer stuff. Well, that took 2 days to do, and now it's done. Like, it's, we move quick, so you're not going to offend me if you take an idea that I didn't do yet. I probably won't get to it.
There you go. Well, let's get your shoulder better, and let's get you out here to Utah to go for elk, or Montana or Wyoming or something.
Time. That's what I'm after in life, man. I appreciate that.
Heck yeah.
But everybody that tuned in, thanks. I didn't get any callers. I also didn't do a good job promoting the phone number, but if we got a regular, so if you wanted to call in, you could have, and if you didn't, you probably didn't have anything worth saying. So no big deal there, but we'll be back next week. What's coming up next? Let me just look at the calendar just to try to be a good podcast host and do my due diligence here. The next booked guest is going to be Bill Thompson. That'll be August 6th. Bill's the founder of Spartan Forge. He will be in studio. He's passing through Wisconsin, so he's going to be here in the Cat P basement in the studio shooting the shit here with, I don't know if Greg and Derek will be around for that one or not yet. We'll see what schedules look like, but that'll be August 6th. In between there, I think it'll just be some version of me and Greg, me and Derek, me, Greg, and Derek. I'm not really sure. Everyone's super busy at summer, so we might even bring in a couple randos that we can pull off the streets to get in the show. I've been trying harder to do local guests, to have people here in studio that experience, no offense to the virtual guests, especially Jonathan, you yourself, but in studio it has a little bit of magic to it that virtual doesn't. So reach out to a few folks that might be local. We're in Wisconsin. There's enough of us out here, but also I feel like Pennsylvania and Michigan really got it going on. And Wisconsin just isn't on that level, apparently, as far as who's around to talk to locally. But we had Bo.
Bucks are bigger, though.
Yeah, well, I think so. We had one last. Bo Bilo was here last week. He drove down from Green Bay. It's a 2-hour drive, so that's a lot to ask. Hey, come down for 2 hours or take a 2-hour drive just to drive right back up. And hey, we're done at 8:00, but you're gonna be home at what, 10? I have to acknowledge and recognize what I'm asking people to do. So if you're listening and you're local and you want to reach out. We'll see what we can do. But that's all I have for tonight, everybody. Hope you have a good rest of the week, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me.